I was very pleased on a Saturday to address a protest in a personal capacity organised by East Belfast Football Club. The protest came about after masked mercenaries aided by the PSNI invaded their football facility the week before in order to demolish a children's hub. This hub had been put on site with implied consent from the council. I think that it was released on Unionist Voice last week, a recording of council officials telling the club to put the hub on site. That verbal agreement was therefore given, and this is all that was required. After that, then this consent was retrospectively taken away from the club. It was then again approved by the relevant committee, and when it went to council, Sinn Féin changed their vote because they did not like the email account from which the proposal was sent. Now, that is an absolute absurdity in any for any statutory agency to take that approach, but it becomes even more absurd whenever the month later the chief executive of Belfast City Council, Miss Suzanne Wiley, was forced to stand up before the council and to clarify what Sinn Féin had said, and actually it was all factually incorrect. But despite the fact that the basis for their objection had melted like the snow, they continued to push forward with this. It was Sinn Féin and the Alliance Party who dedicated themselves to demolishing this hub, which would have provided fantastic services for the young people of East Belfast, would have provided mental health services, and they just utterly opposed this for, I have to say, purely sectarian and political reasons. Now, I think that the Alliance Party have a lot of questions to answer. The councillor that drove this, Miss Kate Nicholl, went on to social media and essentially gloated at her achievement. And, I don't see there being any achievement in demolishing a children's hub to provide mental health and education services for the community. And once again, we see how Alliance are at times actually outgreening Sinn Féin. They are actually more sectarian at times than Sinn Féin, would you believe? And that obviously poses a challenge to the unionist community. And I think, I would say to all of the unionist community, have a look at these type of actions carried out by the Alliance Party, and many people, many moderate and liberal unionists may give Alliance Party at elections a preference and a vote. And I would ask people to reflect upon that, because a vote for the Alliance Party is de facto a vote for Sinn Féin, and I think we're seeing that in Belfast City Hall. So when it comes to May of next year, I think people need to be extremely mindful of that. But of course, this goes much deeper than simply, in my personal view, goes much deeper than simply being about the demolition by masked men of a community hub. I think that is a symptom of a wider problem, and the wider problem is that there is a statutory sectarianism which is growing by the day, and it sets out to target every aspect of cohesion within the unionist community. That is why you see the bands being targeted, because it's where people group together with a common culture. You see the Orange Order being targeted. You see social clubs being targeted. Now, you don't genuinely think that they're targeting social clubs in unionist areas because they care about somebody having a couple of beers 10-15 minutes after. They should know they're targeting social clubs because it is a place where people socialise, where there's community bonding and community cohesion, and they want to break that down. And now we're seeing the next stage of that is where they're targeting successful and cohesive sporting clubs within the unionist community, because they want to break down that cohesion, because a divided community that's split apart is easy to manoeuvre and manipulate, and that's what they want. They want the unionist community to be weak and to be compliant, and that's why they're targeting our culture, our sports clubs, our social clubs, and everything else that goes with it. And of course, what underpins this is a criminalisation agenda. And just finally on that, I think Belfast City Council, I have no doubt, and it's my personal view, and I'm happy to stand over that this is being driven by a gentleman named Mr. Nigel Grimshaw, a former senior PSNI officer who gave up his place in PSNI to take up a senior post in Belfast City Council, and he has quite clearly taken that policing criminalisation ethos in the Belfast City Council, and as a result of that, he is using his position in Belfast City Council to target the culture, to target the sporting clubs within the unionist community. And I think it is a policing agenda, it is a sectarian agenda, and it is an extremely anti-unionist agenda. I think if you look at the screen, Mr. Grimshaw's email address, which is publicly available, will be coming up on the screen, and quite respectfully and in a dignified and courteous manner, if you are concerned about the type of actions being driven by Mr. Grimshaw, which includes the masked men that were sent in to demolish a young person's educational, mental health and well-being hub, then I think you should email Mr Grimshaw and you should express your concerns and let him know how you feel about his actions, and ask him to explain them. And I would also say to Miss Kate Nicholl, to Sinn Féin, an invite was extended to all councillors to attend East Belfast protest on Saturday. They were told they would be given a respectful opportunity to take the microphone and explain their actions. Why will they not come and meet with that football club and explain their actions? Why will the Alliance Party not come and meet with East Belfast Football Club and explain to them why they are targeting the children of East Belfast? Why are they following the sectarian actions to target the club, and why are they saddling up with Sinn Féin as part of this overall anti-unionist sectarian agenda? So I think there's questions there. The answer, I think there's serious questions, as you will see in the speeches from Saturday, and a number of other things that's going to come out in the coming days about the process, about this, and Belfast City Council are going to be challenged. We're going to hold their feet to the fire and do so lawfully and peacefully, and we're going to use our own procedures against them. And when we find a flaw in the procedure, as we will, and in fact we already have done, we're going to impale them on their own procedures, because that is the only way to beat these people. What they want is, they want the unionist people to react with anger. They want people to take to the streets and start smashing and wrecking their own communities. We're a lot wiser than that. We're not going to fall for that. We're going to tie you up in your own procedures and in your own laws, and we're going to use the law every bit as much as you do. And quite frankly, I think we're better at it than you are. So we'll see where it ends up. Thank you.
The reason the club committee have decided to take the stand that we've taken today is quite simple. The porta cabin was removed for whatever reason, but the problem was the porta cabin was brought onto this site as a hub for everybody connected with the club, from the kids to my right, to the seniors to my left, and to the ladies team, and for the ladies team, and for a lot of parents. It wasn't there for any other reason. If you were down here when our ladies are playing and the seniors are playing, our ladies team have nowhere to change, and that was a big impact, and that was a big factor on the porta cabin coming onto site. This was all explained to the council officials and councillors, may I add, who at the time were supportive, and then through different meetings or whatever, the porta cabin was then removed without any contact with the club, bar an email on Monday evening, which was sent to our secretary, who opened it in the morning, which was too late for us to respond. This club is a football club that's been in East Belfast from 1929, and the work that's going on within the local community from the club is second to none. Yes, as a football club, we deliver football, but we also run courses for all sorts, health and well-being, educational courses, you name it, we do it. But the council, again, and I'm emphasising the council as in officials, and I may get a knock in the head for saying this, but councillors as well. I feel the councillors have let us down as much as the officials. This protest today is only a start of a process, because we're not taking it anymore. We seem to be the only club in Belfast being hammered for a porta cabin being inside. I could give you a list of other clubs that use porta cabins, but they seem to home in on us round here at East Belfast. And again, it's not happening anymore. But what I will say is that we'll stand and we will ask for support from today onwards, and I would appreciate everybody coming along and getting behind us, no matter what it is. This is a club belonging to East Belfast, as is the Welders, as is Dundela. We're all from East Belfast, and we all need to take a stand together. Something that some parents and even some of our senior players may not get, if this goes the way the council wants it to go, we could end up losing a partnership agreement. We lose that partnership agreement, we then lose what we have, our facilities around here. And to be honest, the facilities are very poor when you go to some other clubs. So it's, from the teeny boppers right up to seniors, this is an impact. This is just not East Belfast thinking, let's rattle a few cages and shout and ball. We have a lot to lose here. And if we all don't stand together, from the kids' teams, to the adults, to the parents, to the grandparents, to the aunties, to the uncles, to the local community, we're not going to be here for too much longer. But I'll tell you what, we're not going away without a fight.
Last week, masked men came in here to take away a children's hub. There's no getting away from that. No matter what way you look at it, masked men, supported by the PSNI, come in at 9 o'clock in the morning to demolish a children's hub that was put there to help them with education, to help them with mental health, and to provide those services to the local community. Now, if anybody can genuinely and seriously stand and tell me that there was a necessity to send masked men and the PSNI into this ground to tear down a children's hub, then I would like to hear from them, because I quite simply do not think there's any necessity for that. And I would also like to say that while it was not driven by the police accompanied the masked men to come in here, and I would question the necessity for that. And just some people on social media have drew parallels with the incidences in the summer around bonfires when the police come in. Entirely different matter. That was in relation to court orders. It was entirely different. There was no court order here. The council actually phoned the police up, a private body, and said, we're going in, we're sending masked men in to tear down a children's hub. Will you support us? And the police automatically, within 12 hours, decided that they would support that operation. I quite frankly think that is absolutely appalling. There's no necessity for that. If, for example, if you rent your house out to somebody and the person builds a shed in the back garden and you phone the police and say, I have a private civil dispute with my tenant, I'm going to knock the shed down, will you come and help me? Do you think the police would come and help you? Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. But whenever the opportunity comes to aid these masked men to come into East Belfast, they can't wait to be here. They tell us of no resources. Well, if all the resources in the world when they want to go into East Belfast to tear down a children's hub, it's absolutely despicable and disgraceful. And the procedures that the council went through, and the club is going to fight this the right way, because quite often I believe, and it's a belief of other people, that council officers and other people take these actions because they want to provoke the community into breaking the law, into the act in an aggressive manner, so as they can stand back and say, oh, look at them people, look at those big people, these big bad boys, doesn't it just, they deserve all they get. And that's a strategy, that's what they want to do, that's what they want to draw people out into. But the club's not going to fall for that. The unionist community in East Belfast is not going to fall for that. Instead, what we're going to do is we are going to go through every line of the procedure, every dot, every sentence in the process, and we will find a flaw. We already have. And see, whenever we find a flaw in the council's procedure for what they done last week, we are going to impale Nigel Grimshaw and the council officers upon it, and we will hang them that way. We will hang them with their own laws they try and use against us. And going forward, we want to work constructively with local councillors. We're going to do that. We're going to do that, and the club's going to do that in the coming weeks. But I have to say, and I have to say from a personal point of view, that when this vote was taken in committee, there were councillors there, unionist councillors, and when I read the committee report, it states 10 voted for this, nobody dissented, nobody voted against it. And the excuse put out was, well, it wouldn't have made any difference. I am sorry, that is unacceptable. The very basis of a democratic society, the very basis of society as a whole, is you put your arguments forward, you register your dissent. And there is no dissent. And when we look back, there is no dissent. It's a fundamental principle of every man. You've the right to have your own mind. You've the right to put forward your arguments. You've the right to dissent. When people read the minutes of those meetings, no unionist councillor stood up and said, no, this is wrong, I dissent, I want that recorded. You should have dissented, and going forward, by God, you're elected to represent the people. Even if you're going to lose the argument, by God, at least make one. And I just want to come on to some wider issues around the club. East Belfast Football Club has been the victim of much demonisation, and it goes into a whole wider agenda which I will touch on at the end. And this agenda spreads into the media and into statutory agencies. And what it's all about is there's individuals involved in East Belfast who they want to target for political purposes, and that is not fair. And what we see happen, for example, Nacho Novo comes over here, does a charity fundraising event, fantastic, for all the kids. I pick up the paper next week. Do I read what Nacho Novo done for the children of East Belfast? Do I read what this club done? No. I see Nacho Novo pictured with the first team manager Stephen Matthews and David McConnell in the paper, and they're demonising those people. And now the likes of David and Stephen, in the time-honoured tradition of loyalists, will stand back and say, we've broad shoulders, we can take it, let's move on. No, I'm sorry. Yes, they can take it. but they shouldn't have to, because it's not fair. Because if it's them today, then who is it next, and who is it next, and who is it next? So if people just sit back and allow people to be demonised because they're deemed as easy targets, because they'll just have broad shoulders and they'll take it. No, I'm sorry, they will not take it anymore, and the people won't take it anymore, because David and Stephen and everybody else at this club is doing fantastic work for the community. They should be judged on the achievements of this club, and no longer are we going to sit back and let the media have a free crack at them, let statutory agencies have a free crack at them. Fairness and impartiality has to apply to everybody. I don't care who you are. And so going forward, East Belfast Football Club and the Unionist community will be standing together behind everybody. And finally, on a wider point, I just want to talk about what I think is the predominant agenda here, which is a wider agenda within all statutory agencies. You see, I actually don't think this is just all about targeting a hub, or I think it has a wider agenda. I think this is all about, if you look at it, every cohesive section of the Unionist community is being targeted, and the purpose behind that is to break our community spirit. So they go after our culture, they target the bands, because bands bring people together. The Orange Order brings people together, so they target that. They target our social clubs. Do you really think that they care about licensing? Do you actually think they care about somebody having a drink 10 minutes too late? Of course they don't. What they care about is people socialising together, so that's why they target the social clubs. Do you think that they actually care about a porter cabin on a site that's doing nobody no harm? Of course they don't. They care because a sporting club brings people together and brings a community together. So the overall purpose is to target every section of the cohesive community, and that is the overall agenda what's going on here. And the only way to fight back is to fight them at their own game. You have to challenge them what they do to us, because you know what they want? They want a violent reaction. They want people to take to the streets and start wrecking the place. That's not going to happen, because that plays into the stereotype that they're going to create. We are going to impale them on their own laws. They came here 2 years ago, but a totally unrelated issue. Belfast City Council, they spent £10,000 going to court to take an injunction against a bonfire. If they actually had any wit and they actually read the injunction, it stated in it, in order for it to take effect, it had to be affixed to the wall. They're that legally stupid. They didn't even affix it to the wall. They spent £10,000 taking out an injunction that didn't even take any effect. So we are going to challenge every single line, every dot, every procedure, and as I said at the start, see, when we find a fault, we will impale them on it, and we will go forward from there. Thank you very much.
How important is in your children's life this club?
So important. It is very, very important to my daughter and my son's life, because they get out of the house, mix with other children of all ethnic minorities, not just children from the community. It is just from afar, all around East Belfast. They are learning how to be a part of a team. They're also keeping up their fitness. They're interested in it and taking part in something that they love. To just live
do you also have in the club? I've noticed being here, people of ethnic background, ethnic minorities, and do you have people, maybe kids who aren't as fit as other kids, or perhaps with learning difficulties, anything like that?
Yes, that's right. They also cater for disability children, so they would. If they do have their mobility, of course, but then they meet their children's needs in every way they can. I feel that East Belfast actually have the very good understanding of equality, diversity and inclusion.
Very good, thank you. And Elizabeth, what's your role within the club?
I am a committee member as well, and I joined the committee about 4 months ago. And I'm also a parent. My son also plays for East Belfast Football Club, and we live in the area. We come from the area, East Belfast.
And how do you feel? How do you, as a human being, feel, not as a committee member, just as a woman from a troubled area, from a deprived area, how do you feel about the treatment the council have meted out to you?
Well, I feel it's very unfair. We travel to all parts of the community with the club to play at other facilities, and our kids even notice, those other facilities is a lot better than what East Belfast have. There's nothing here.
And you yourselves, the club, not the council, you actually bought and paid for the installation of a porta cabin for a children's hub and a ladies' changing room, because you don't have one.
Yeah.
How do you feel them in the council saying masked men in to remove it? Masked men, is this right? Could this be correct?
Absolutely disgusted.
And it doesn't show.
But can we just confirm this? The council sent masked men. Seriously?
Yeah.
And how did the children feel about this? This must have maybe brought some traumatic...
Yeah, well, even with the protests today, there's some children that felt that scared in a way, not scared, but
they didn't understand
with
either
mask
because
men too.
we're bringing our children up, equally. So we're teaching them to go along. So there is equality in this life, but whenever they see pictures on Facebook and stuff, my daughter is a teenager and we'd have it, but whenever she sees pictures like that of masked men, then she's coming to ask me questions, whereas I don't want to teach my daughter about masked men because this is not what it's about. Could you forget about the past and realise that it's now all about our children going forward and help and support us in every way you can, because that's what we need.
And you, Elizabeth?
And I feel as a parent and my son, my son feels so passionate about this club, and I think if this club was to be taken away, my son wouldn't go anywhere else to play football. He wouldn't think of another club or want to be in another club, because this is his first club that he's been with.
I don't think it's fair. I think that the club has been disenfranchised. We have put in for things like funding, or we have been negatively, our reputation has been tarnished. Certain individuals within the club have been targeted. When this club is trying to do work within the community, with the community and for the community, by members of the community. If this was another part of town, if this was another town of Belfast, if this was another section of the community, these issues would not be raised.
Can I ask you a very straight question? Do you think there is a sectarian element to the behaviour and the things that's happened to the club from the council?
I think to answer that, you need to look at other decisions that the council have made, and there is other porta cabins on other football sites, so I think that really question answers itself.
It's very disappointing. See the people that organise the porta cabins be taken away. See them come down on a Monday and a Wednesday night. You see what it means to the kids. See this club. I'm really new down myself, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It makes you feel part of something.
But the council sent in masked men to remove a kid's plaything.
Again,
can you explain this? Have you any explanation why they did it?
Can anybody explain it? I don't know why they've taken it away.
And could I just ask you, Michael, what do you think the future would be if this club is forced out of existence because of the action of the council?
It's an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. Again, if these council officials need to come down on a Monday night to see how many kids are actually here. It's all right us saying there's 200 or 300 kids here. If they come down and see it, we'll see how many.
Do they ever come down?
I haven't. Kate Hoey was down once, and
Kate Hoey from the British.
She came over and she was taken aback. The whole club was here training.
If you'd one message for the Belfast Council, what would it be?
Wise up.